So, you've received and assembled your offset robotics box tube. Today we're going to take an assembled box tube and turn it into a fully rigged one. We're going to be using our mounting kit, which is sold separately on the website. In your mounting kit, you'll find all the screws, bearings and prints you'll need. You'll also have 2 square beams and an axle. Now for the plates, we sell both type A and type B. In this kit, we have both of them. The one you pick depends on how you want to configure your box tube. We have examples on Onshape, which will be on the screen now. All the tools you'll need are very common, just pliers, wire cutters for the zip ties, scissors for the string and Allen keys. You won't get string in the mounting kit, but this will come with your box tube. These plates will mount onto the end of the box tube. To do this, we'll be using M3 6mm screws and slim M3 nuts. It's important to use the slim ones, because if not, the nuts will hit the end insert like this and it will jam. To mount the plate, I would first extend the middle stage to make room. Then I would get a nut and just slide it along the tube with my finger like that. I would then put the plate on and screw the screw through. Now, if you're having trouble with that, we do have an access hole for these ones and a tool which will fit inside it. For this tube, we'll have one string tied to the end of the middle stage, which runs through the V-groove bearings and back to the spool. As that string's pulled, the middle stage will extend. Now, we'll have a cascade extension string, which will tie off and run through the V-groove bearing and attach to the bottom of the top stage, which will mean that the motion of the middle stage will also extend the top stage, and will run one continuous return string on the way back. Your box tube will come with 4 strings. The shorter ones will be your extension strings, and the longer one will be your return string. To tie the first extension string, you want to pull the box tube through till you see these holes. This is an access hole, which will make things a lot easier. You want to start by threading the string, just make sure there's no fraying on the end, all the way through this hole and to the other side. Like that. And you'll notice it will likely come out the big one. We want to then thread it back through the big one, because our goal is to tie a knot between these 2 holes. Now that we've got it through, we can tie a simple knot on the end. I'm no expert on knots, but just make sure it's tight. I would even recommend putting a little bit of super glue on the knot so it doesn't come apart. You then want to thread the string through, well, first under the metal and then through the V-groove, and this will be going back to the spool that we'll add later. I would pull a little bit to make sure the string's tight. Perfect. Now you've got your first stage rigged. It would be a good idea to cut the excess off just to reduce friction. Now the procedure for tying the up string is almost identical to that of this. We'll start off by tying the string off to the top stage. You'll find very similar access holes, except this time we'll be going through one and out the other. Now that I've done that, I'm going to be tying a knot just like last time. And make sure, if you want to be really safe, use a little bit of super glue so it doesn't come undone. One of the reasons I recommended pliers was also so you can get your knot super tight. Exactly the same, we'll be putting the string under the metal and through the V-groove. Just like that, pull it all the way through. Just like that. We're going to be building the tie-off point, which will also serve as a way of redirecting the strings to the extension. In your mounting kit, you'll find a bunch of 3D prints. You've got 4 of this long variety, 2 of the short one, and then these 2 parts here. We'll be using 2 of these and 1 of these to construct the tie-down point. We'll also need a long screw and a nut. We'll also be using 2 V-groove bearings, and these will redirect our strings for the extension. Now, to reduce friction on the V-groove bearing, we have shims on either side with the shields. I'll show you how to put them in. They can be a little bit tricky. So you'll need 4 shims, 2 V-grooves, and 2 shields. To assemble the next bit, we'll need 2 V-groove bearing assemblies, which can be a little bit hard to create. What you need is a V-groove shield with a set of shims on this side, a set of shims on that side, and a V-groove bearing in the middle, which is hard to set up because we then have to slot it through on the actual box tube. So what I've always found works best is actually gluing the shims on first. To do this, I would put a screw through the V-groove the shield like that, just like that, and then I would just use a little bit of glue or really any sort of viscous liquid. Oil can actually work as well. Through just a very small amount, and then just rotate it down like that. Now the shim's on, and that's going to save us a lot of hassle with like shims falling out or anything like that, because now it's stuck in place. Next one is also very easy, exactly the same. I would usually do this with a fast setting super glue, which I find works far better, but this is all I have on hand right now. Like that. I don't know if you can see on camera, but there's actually 2 shims sitting there, which is gonna allow us to clamp the shield and actually not cause any additional friction. Now that these are glued, we just want to put a screw through here, starting off with one of these small 3D prints. You'll notice that there's a cutout which the bearing shield fits onto. And we've got another one of these middle parts which also has cutouts for the bearing shields. There we go, it's come through now. Just have a look at the orientation of these parts. Make sure this is aligned like that. Perfect. And the V-groove bearings will go on that side there. Finally, we'll finish it off with a nylock nut. M3, of course. Perfect. Now that this is in place, we can take this is the cascade up string, thread it through this print, just so that it stays like out of the way. I'm gonna grab, my left hand, I'm gonna grab this string, pull it through here, just so that it's tucked out of the way. I'm gonna come back and we're gonna tie it off to this print. Now, a trick is to use a zip tie. First attach the zip tie and then tie up to the zip tie. That way we have adjustable tension. Make sure your box tube is pushed all the way in here. Finally, we're going to tie the return string, which is going to run from the top of the box tube all the way through to the end. There's going to be a little bit of setup needed before we can put the return string in. We're going to have to, the string has to route through this hole here and has to wrap around to the spool. And to redirect the string, we're going to make some more of these, one here and one here. We'll use the longer prints, but the same setup with the V-grooves. And again, we'll put a nylock nut on the other side. I've now done the exact same thing with the second one, which means we can take the return string and redirect it all the way up to the pulley. For the return string, you'll find a 1.6 meter string in your kit, which is the one we'll use. We'll be taking it and threading it up through that hole you see there, all the way to the end of the tube. Just do this slowly. And again, we'll just tie a simple knot at the top. Perfect. And now I'm going to take this return string and just redirect it through the V-grooves. We have our extension and our retraction. And as you can see, because of how the cascade extension works, the distance I have to pull the cascade string is actually half of what I have to pull the return string to retract that distance, which is that far. Which is why, when you look at the pulley, the diameter of this is twice the size of that. Our next step will be grabbing some bearings and mounting the shaft, which will then have the spool in it. Tolerances on the plates have deliberately been made very tight, so that way there's like no play. This might require a little bit of hard pushing. And we can slide that right through, and we have the spool mounted. We can now tie the return string and the extension string. We'll start with the extension first, which we can do in the contracted position. This is important to remember because as you pull this string, it's going to spool onto the spool, which means it has to be tied in this position. Because if it's all the way out, it has to release string. Make sure that this string is passing underneath the V-groove. I've actually done this wrong and I'm about to fix it up. If this is a little bit difficult, because it's the first one, we can actually just remove the spool and thread this through the holes. Once you can just see the end poking out the other side, you can grab it with tweezers or pliers, pull it all the way through. I'm going to now reattach the axle. The tension of this string at this current moment doesn't actually matter too much because when we tie the return string, that'll pick up any slack in the extension. Just make sure that the box tube is like all the way in, like that. I'm going to tie a knot. And just pull the knot like really close. I didn't do a great job with this. but that slack will be okay just because it's going to be picked up like that. Do you see that? Now it's tight. Perfect. I'm gonna get that tight. I'm gonna cut this. Then we'll spool it a little bit like that. Perfect. And now you'll notice that when I spool this, the tube will extend. So we're almost done. All we have to do is make it so when the spool spins the other way, the tube starts picking up the slack and the return string pulls the string in. So let's have a look at this. We notice that as it turns this way, the tube's extending, which means the return string has to pull it when it's going this way. I'm going to thread the return string underneath so it comes out on this side. And I'm actually going to pre-bend the string just so it goes through better. There we go. See how it just fed up? Grab with pliers. The return string has to be tied when the tube is fully extended, because that's when the return string is at its maximum length, because it's then going to start pulling the string in. There we go. We're currently at max extension. A little bit past max extension, actually. So this here is the point where we want to tie the return string. I might actually just find the hole. Perfect. I'm going to tie off to this hole here. Just a simple case of threading it through. Make sure the end is not frayed. And you'll notice that at max extension, the return string, there's almost nothing on it, but the extension is fully spooled. And as we go down, that inverts and you have all the string on this spool and nothing like that. Here we go, this is how it's meant to be. String running underneath and then up to the spool, just like that. Now that we've got it all rigged, for counter springing, we're going to need a tie down point. And I'm going to mount the threaded square beams on the back. These can be useful for mounting the box tube to your robot. They provide a lot of different options. You'll find 2 of these threaded square beams in your mounting kit. If not, we do also have a full kit available on our website, and you can buy individual lengths as well. Now, the handy thing with cascade rigging is that because the stages extend together, you only need to spring one, and then that will spring both of them, if that makes sense. In the kit, you'll find some bungee cord. All we have to do is tie a bungee cord to the bottom of this stage, around this, and then all the way back. We'll do this exactly the same as we did with the string. You'll notice on this side, the string is tied here, which means we have to tie the bungee on that side. That way they're not crossing paths. Remember, you need to thread this through the same access hole. Again, we'll just tie a simple knot, making sure it's tight. Cut off the excess. We do send plenty of bungee, so you will definitely have enough. And then all we need is enough to wrap around and go to the tie down point. So we'll just cut an approximate length. And just go through the square beam like that. Now this is how we adjust the tension. Because the tighter this is, the more it's going to want to extend. To the point where it's actually just going to start extending by itself. Remember, it's going to be the tightest when it's at the bottom, and then the loosest up the top. You'll now find when it's horizontal, it actually wants to start extending. This is what you do if you have a vertical lift, so that when there's some weight, it'll be able to extend and hold its position very easily. This is actually the first time I've ever rigged this box tube, and if I can do it, so can you. Check out offsetrobotics.com for all of our information, including new product releases like this belted box tube. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.